frustrating, flat, fear, and focus. Just 4 of the effing F words that we'll talk about on tonight's effing Mansfield Matters podcast as the Stags, well, they do a U-turn in form. A frustrating goalless draw at home to Exeter City left the Stags very frustrated on Saturday afternoon, and then a lack of focus on Tuesday night saw the Stags' unbeaten run come to an end at the hands of Peterborough United. The Stags are back in action in the FA Cup on Saturday as they head to Premier League Burnley, but we need to focus on other things, especially as the relegation zone might be a little bit closer than what you think it is. As always, come and have your say on your team in the live feed comments. Why? Well, it doesn't just matter when we're winning games and we're unbeaten, it matters when we lose too. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters Podcast. Hello, happy Thursday and welcome to another edition of the Mansfield Matters Podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters, from a joyous January to a frustrating start to February. The game against Exeter at the weekend was a little bit flat, and then of course the Peterborough game on Tuesday night, frustrating at the full-time whistle. There'll be lots more Fs as tonight's show goes on, I'm sure. But joining me to talk all things Mansfield Town, I've assembled 2 of the very, very best as we look back on 2 home games and a very frustrated Nigel Clough. Let's say hello, good evening and welcome to them. Firstly, a man who added yet another name to his goal scorer for the Stags repertoire. Let's say hello and good evening to Mr. Alan Wilson. Evening, Al.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
And let's say hello, good evening and welcome to a man who can give us frustration, but he can also give us joy as well. It just depends what side the coin lands. Evening, Clive.
Good evening, Craig. Hello, Alan. Hello, everybody out there.
It's good to see you all, as always. As ever, if you want to have your say on your team, feel free to do so in the live feed comments, and we'll get to them as the show goes on. Well, like I said, Alan, it was a joyous January, as we know, although at the end it was starting to falter a little bit. And then so far in February, it's been very frustrating indeed. These last 2 home games have been absolute stark contrast, haven't they? A frustrating performance against Exeter, which resulted in a clean sheet and a point, and a great performance against Peterborough, which resulted in the square root of sod all.
I know it's like 1 or 2 people have said in various social media forums. It's the typical Mansfield way. They don't play that well and you get a point, and then they play out the skins, or most of the night out of the skins, and we end up losing. I just felt a bit sorry for Fraser Blake Tracy because it was his mistake invariably that lost us, otherwise we would have drawn. But I was pleased with quite a few of the performances. Russell showed glimpses. Bolton, it was certainly his best game. And Victor Adebayo, or Sticky Vicky as you want to call him, he held the ball up very well, I thought. So there's a lot of positives and, just that negative that were lost, in my opinion.
Yeah, plenty of positives, but also plenty of negatives as well, Clive. Where do you sit when you wrap up the last 2 days? Are you in camp Clough of cutting a frustrated figure, or are you relatively pleased with the return?
You can't blame Clough for being frustrated because the game was there to be won, and we had the team to do it. We just didn't convert chances. I'm not a big fan of blaming players when they make a mistake. It happens in life. And in fact, the biggest mistakes were the missed chances in the first half. Yeah. So I think the reality is we did enough to win the game, and that's the encouragement really, in that we're making chances in volume again. We weren't doing that for the last 2 or 3 games. We were relying on a steadfast rear guard, And that's okay, but it's not very exciting stuff to watch. The last two games, particularly, were drab. This was anything but drab. Any neutral at Field Mill would have really enjoyed that game. But it is. We were going to lose at some point, and you're going to lose to a team that has 2 shots and scores 2 goals. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's very true. We'll work back to the Peterborough game in a little while, but let's work further backwards, Alan, and start with the Exeter game, a 0-0 draw, and something which wasn't on our bingo cards. It came absolutely out of nowhere. We were sort of saying a couple of weeks ago, we signed Harry Lewis from Carlisle for a fee, and we're thinking we've paid money for a guy to come and sit on the bench, and all of a sudden he started and he keeps a clean sheet and does okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say it didn't really have a lot to do. It came out with one diving, sliding challenge in the first half, and it didn't really have to do. A couple of shots were straight at him, but it looked comfortable, it looked confident, and his kicking wasn't too bad. So I think all in all, it's a positive on that respect.
Yeah, it is. I think it's good to know, Clive, isn't it, that we've got a competent number 2 who can come in. The only thing that worried me slightly and does worry me slightly is when that change does happen, and it's a very niggly thing. It's a picky thing. Liam Roberts is obviously predominantly left-footed, so likes the ball to be delivered to him on his left-hand side. Harry Lewis, right-footed, so opens his body up to the right. And there was a few moments, probably in the first 10, 15 minutes or so of the game, Clive, where the defenders went to play a ball back to him, but were opening it up onto his left-hand side because they're so used to Liam Roberts.
Yeah.
And Owen Mason as well, more predominantly left-footed. So it's a little bit of those things that you've got to be a little bit aware of when you're a defender.
Partnerships are based on understanding and frequency. And the back four, as we've been, or the back line, whether it's a 4 or a 5 or a 3, have developed an understanding with a goalkeeper, and it's been great. Take that goalkeeper out of the equation. Whoever you put in there, they're going to have to have a new understanding with them. The guy hasn't had a chance to train at length with the back line up. So inevitably, there's going to be some feeling out of the relationship. And I thought he did incredibly well. And he actually can kick with both feet, although he's predominantly right-footed. So yes, it's a risk, but better than not having a competent goalkeeper in reserve anyway. And I'm pleased for that. He got a game as well.
I had to have a little smile to myself, Alan, because obviously Jim sits on the row behind me, and I
thought about that.
He came up into the ground, and obviously the team news were out and everything. And I sort of laughed to him and said, "Bet you're delighted we've signed a second choice goalkeeper." Now he said, "No, I'd have been happy with Jordan Bowery."
Yeah, I did think of Jim when he was announced, when we saw the teams. There was only one little bit that I noticed. That I think it was in the second half. Fraser Blake Tracy. It might have been the second half. Fraser Blake Tracy it was struggling. He was wanting him to come and pick the ball up, and he didn't. They didn't communicate, and he just ended up putting it in Rosette. I think that's about the only nasty bit I saw.
Yeah, looking at his performance, Clive, I mean, I was pleased with him, don't get me wrong. I thought he was very, very competent. But compared to Liam Roberts, I think Harry Lewis is a little bit more of a sit back and sort of wait, whereas Liam Roberts is very much a front foot goalkeeper and likes to command his box a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, of the two, you're going to choose Roberts every time. I mean, in fact, of any other keeper in the league, I think you're going to choose Roberts. Although I thought their keeper, Peterborough's keeper, was incredibly competent. But we know we're lucky to have Roberts, and if he stays fit and keeps himself healthy, then we've got him, to play every game. And I think Harry comes along not expecting to get many games, and that game was a bonus for him, really. Yeah. But it must have been quite nerve-wracking because he's not played serious football for a while.
No, and to have been told on late Friday that it might be a possibility, and then pretty much first thing Saturday morning, you what, Gaffer? I've signed here to come and sit on the bench, and you want me to what? You want me to play? What?
Got to clean my boots now.
I don't think I can remember. I've left my gloves in Carlisle. Someone's gonna have to nip to DW Sports or to Mansfield Marketplace to get me some gloves. Playing with the old school gardening gloves on. Anyway, it was a flat performance against Exeter, and there's no denying that. And one big talking point of the game, other than failing to score a goal again, was the withdrawal of Ryan Sweeney at half-time. As it transpires, he's going to be out for the traditional 6 to 8 weeks, and that pretty much puts him out for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's not looking good, but I was lucky enough to do the interview on Tuesday night, and it was Ryan who came up.
Now, can I just ask, did you ask the question?
No, because I've already asked that before.
Okay, fair enough.
I've already asked that once. Somebody did say that, actually. They lost money on it because they said you didn't say it. I said, no, I've already asked him before I can remember. And as Sweens was coming by past me, going out the 1861 suite, he said it was a chocolate digestive. I said, I know, I can remember it, Sweens. But anyway, forget that. He said it had the scan on that day, on Tuesday, and they were just waiting for the results when I spoke to him. But he sounded very positive, lad did. He spoke very well.
Well, let's hope that he can get back, Clive, because obviously on Tuesday, prior to their second goal, wasn't it? I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Bailey Cargill picked up a nasty-looking knock, which then meant Fraser Tracy had to go in at left side centre half. And again, when Bailey Cargill gets a knock, that it's not just going to be a short one. Does tend to be a little bit injury-prone, Clive, and Nigel Clough again gave the traditional 6 to 8 weeks klaxon, which puts him out for the rest of the season as well, pretty much. And to lose both your left-footed centre halves and two centre halves, Clive, that have been absolutely fantastic over the last 10 games or so, it's a huge loss and means we're going to have to reshuffle again. It leaves it a little bit short too.
Well, it's too late to do anything about it now. We've got what we've got. We've got to work with what we've got, and it's a measure of Clough and his management team as to how they deal with this situation. Because ultimately, he's said on several occasions, "I've now got the squad I want. I've got cover in every area. This is going to put it to a test." And players that are adaptable, I'm thinking of the Lucas Aitkins of the world, they're going to have to step up and cover those holes when we're moving players around. And you know what Clough's like? You replace one player by shifting 8 people around. So that's going to happen. We're going to see some strange variants, I think.
It's going to be an interesting one, Alan, as well, because obviously Kyle Noyle's been knocking on the door, trying to get a game. But for me, I prefer him at right back compared to him playing at centre half. I prefer Elliot Hewitt. If we are going to play the both of them, I prefer Hewitt to play there based on height and based probably a little bit on pace as well. But then with Hewitt, we know that he struggles to last beyond 65, 70 minutes. I thought he did well to get to the 80-minute mark on Tuesday night, to be fair. And, that leaves us a little bit short. And like Clive said, it means we're moving 2 or 3 players around to accommodate one. And we could do with a certain Mr. Bowery being available for selection again, couldn't we?
I'm going to say, well, if when Jordan is fit and available, that's one possibility. Also, Fraser Blake Tracy playing centre half and putting Macca back to left back. That could be another possibility. Although Stephen McLaughlin has actually played centre half before, hasn't he? So I think I'd prefer Blake Tracy and Dave in middle at Park, and either have Hewitt on the right and Blake Tracy on the left, and put Macca on left side, left back.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, to be fair. I mean, if we play in the back four, it's relatively simple. Hewitt or Noyle will play the right back slot. Dave will stay where he is. Yeah. Blake Tracy moves across to left side centre half. Macca comes in at left back. The only difficulty, Clive, will be when we want to try and sit in with a 5 and try and protect it a little bit more. That will depend on the availability of the likes of Lucas Aitkins. It might mean that players like Lewis Reed might have to sit in a little bit deeper. Especially now we haven't got Jamie McDonnell, who was more of a, he could sort of do that defensive, that central defensive role. But it's just a case of trying to get through best we can. Although I do like the thought sometimes with Luke Bolton. I think people sort of forget that he can play right wing back. He did that a lot for Salford Clive, and a certain Mr. Evans doesn't mind playing left wing back either. And I'm sure at some point we're going to see Rhys Oates potentially in a wing back role, and little Nobby Walsh too.
Yeah, I was about to suggest that. I mean, we've got both Rhys Oates and Evans have got an issue at the moment in that they're not firing as well as we know they can. So if they're not doing as well at the front, stick them at the back. That's what used to happen at school football. If you were taken on as a number 9 and you weren't scoring goals, they used to stick you in goals. Well, I'm not suggesting that. I think little Nobby Welsh will be the goalkeeper in reserve now, I think.
Maybe we'll certainly see, but yeah, it certainly throws up some interesting quandaries. Tuesday night, Alan saw, I think, 7 changes to the lineup from Saturday. Obviously, 6 outfield changes with Liam Roberts taking his place back between the sticks, and a good opportunity for players to get some minutes under their belt and really grasp an opportunity. I felt a week or so ago that when Luke Bolton came on, he was very, very poor. I thought he had a better game on Tuesday night. Regan Hendry was back to the Regan Hendry that we saw before. And the one who impressed me most, actually, was John Russell again. I thought he, on the ball, carried it really well. There was some neat little turns to quick changes of direction. Lewis Reed was exceptional in his passing in the first half as well. Nobby Welsh took his opportunity back in the side after a little bit of a timeout as well. So it was really refreshing to see out of those who came back in, the 6 outfielders that came in, Alan, who was the ones which stood out for you in terms of staking a claim for a more regular place in the side, do you feel?
Well, Luke Bolton certainly didn't do himself any injustice. I thought he had a really good game. Nobby Welsh, to be fair, they all played well. That Russell played, with his dinky little touches and his turns and his twists, but sometimes it's that final pass. It doesn't get there. I'm still like 50-50 on Russell. He looks good, and he can look good, and he glides on the grass. Being a tall lad, isn't it? It doesn't take him long to get there. But it was really interesting to see, because when you saw the team, you thought, wow, 7 changes, but it worked. Apart from the end product, which was a shame, really.
I feel the problem on Tuesday for me, Clive, was actually the end product in terms of crosses from wide areas. The conditions suited us down to a T. If the pitch is wet and zippy, players like Lewis Reed and John Russell are going to have a field day, zipping the ball around and making short and long passes. But when we got into the wide areas, there was a bit of wind. We don't tend to do well in the air. Every time we got it into a wide area, we lifted across towards the back post, often overhit as well. Every time we got a low cross into the box, so we looked dangerous. So if we'd have just hit the ball hard and low across the surface, I think we might have had a little bit more luck. And I think that probably is a little bit of what dripped into Nigel Clough's frustrations, Clive.
That was his main thrust of complaint, is that they made the chances and wasted the crosses. Whether you actually tap them in a lottery, and we should have the one we should have got over the line. But the reality is, if you don't put the right crosses in, you're asking too much of your strike force. Hit them hard and low, you've got every chance of something stupid happening as well. And it happens to us, it happens to other teams. But they were sending them into orbit. It was crazy. But going back to the players that came in, I think we now have to invest in Bolton and Russell by giving them full match time, because they're only going to get to the state we think they have, and the reason we secured their signatures, if we give them that time. We don't rush people back. In fact, sometimes I'm getting impatient at how long it takes to get players onto the pitch. But these two have now turned out they now need to push forward, and I saw enough in them to say that we can see where the quality is in Bolton. He needs to play. He needs to want to play. And Russell's, I think he's a really good player. He just needs to find his relationships on the field.
Yeah, Russell seems very, very hungry to me, Alan. He reminds me a lot of Tyler Roberts in terms of his composure, bringing the ball down. I would love to see him and Tyler Roberts in the same side, as I would with Big Vic as well, or Sticky Vicky, or whichever interpretation you want to go with. I felt he dropped deep to collect the ball quite well. He's not a target man at all. Let's not forget with him, he spent the best part of 18 months out. So he's going to be a confidence player. He's going to need that little bit of time to grow. But what I think he did do was send a big warning sign out to Will Evans and say, you need to, if you want to be starting over me, you need to raise your game.
I'm going to say, he certainly holds the ball up well, and he's very tough, isn't he? He don't lose the ball a deal. Once he's got it at his feet, it's very hard to shift off the ball. And it's like you said, Bolton, I think he just needs a goal. His confidence was really up. That first time, that first probably 5-10 minutes when he did that mazy run through, and it just fell right at the last. That gave him so much confidence, and after that, you could see him. He wanted to the ball all the time. But I think it'd be a nice idea when they're on the training pitch to practice corners because they were woeful.
They always are.
You've got to presume they do that, Alan.
Well, you'd think so, but
you'd hope so.
But the chap who normally puts them in, Aaron Lewis, obviously wasn't there.
I'm going to say,
in previous games,
we missed him.
Little Nobby Welsh had been putting some really good passes and crosses and corners.
I'd agree with that.
Didn't do it on this occasion.
Yeah.
Very true indeed. As always, come and keep getting your comments and have your say on your team. We're going to discuss that post-match interview in just a minute. But before we do that, we've had a question in when we were talking about the centre-half situation from Glyn, who says, would you have Hewitt at centre-half Saturday instead of Fraser, Blake, Tracy? Now, for me, I think it depends on what shape we go with. If we go with a flat back four like we did on Tuesday night, absolutely not. Keep him at right back, and he can push on and, support whoever's playing down that right-hand side as well. Because then we'll become slightly unbalanced in terms of left footers and right footers. If we play in a back four, it makes more sense for Blake Tracy to sit in at left side centre back and bring Macca in at out and half left back. If we're going with five at the back, then I probably would push him into a more centre back position. Yeah, but I guess it just depends on A, shape, and B, fitness. And of course, Saturday's going to be a completely different test anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that because I think Dave, when he's in that right side, that's his best position. I'm waiting for that. That's his best position, whether he's got Cargill, FBT, Sweeney, or whoever's at side of him. And I think, it would be right back. But yes, if we go with the five, he'll either put Noyle or Aikens right back and drop Hewitt at side of Dave and, FBT or whoever.
Interesting. I have got this other vision, Clive, as well for Saturday. We've all been saying, Jordan Bowery will be a few weeks away. It'd be nice to have him back in. We all know Bowery, the name Bowery is going to be in the starting lineup, don't we, on Saturday?
Of course he is.
Nailed on. Absolutely nailed on. Right.
What's the situation with Sweeney at the moment?
So he picked the injury that he picked up at the Exeter game in the first half. Calf injury. Clough said the traditional 6 to 8 weeks. Claxon waiting for scan results on that. So could be available. We don't know. But I imagine if Clough's sort of saying 6 to 8 weeks, then I don't think we'll see him. So yeah, I think we'll probably be without him as we go to Burnley on Saturday, which is a shame because it's just he's started to come back into form, and I think he's actually been quite solid in that unbeaten run that we've had as well. And I actually felt we missed him in the second half on Saturday, and I felt we missed him at times on Tuesday as well because we get into areas, when we're having the set pieces, you're looking at who's going up, and Cargill's tall, Blake Tracy's tall, but Sweeney's just got that bit more of a presence about him, and we're getting the ball in a wide area. We're thinking this would be right for a long throw in. We've no one to get on the end of it.
Plus the fact when they start fighting, when we get a free kick or a corner and their defenders are trying to grapple hold of somebody, it's Sweeney mainly that they try and grapple hold of, leaving FBT and Cargill free further back. Yeah.
I would love to see Dave go forward for a corner. He always stays back. He's always the one that stays back. But there you go. Right, we're going to touch upon that post-match interview from Nigel Clough now. Now, I don't usually do this. I don't usually play it into the podcast, but I feel like I have to so we can refresh our minds. So let's take a quick look at what Nigel Clough had to say after Tuesday night's 2-1 defeat at home to Peterborough when he was speaking to Mark Stevenson.
I would rather take the 0-0 and have the moans and the grumbles and everything that we've had in the last two games. Another point on the board, another clean sheet. It's absolutely pointless playing that way, playing as well as that, not getting anything from the game. I'm sorry, it is. It's what a waste of a performance. In the first half, we should have been 2-3 ahead. We're not because of the wastefulness of the players out there, and it's beyond frustrating.
You freshened it up with 7 changes, and it seemed to really set the team alight because they were playing refreshed. They set off at breakneck speed.
Yeah, but you have to make it pay and you have to make it count. As I say, it's all pointless if you lose the game. I don't want plaudits. Oh, wasn't it a great game, fantastic game, and the supporters saying, oh, brilliant game and all that. We want points, not plaudits. We're how many? 6 points off relegation, 6-7 points off relegation, something like that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in getting enough points to stay in the league, nothing else.
Usually in matches we sometimes dissect the individual chances. We can't tonight because we haven't got time. You had 27 shots at goal.
There you go. Once again, I'd rather keep a clean sheet and have 2 shots on goal. And the 2 goals we gave away were bordering on criminal tonight. Our corner, and we concede. And then Fraser Blake-Tracy gives a ridiculous ball inside. And it goes against everything that we've been building in the last 8-9 games.
Thanks so much to Mansfield Town Football Club for that. You can watch the full interview on their YouTube channel or any of their social media pages, or indeed I Follow Stags. Well, let's start with the very end of that, Clive, and talk about the 2 goals and Nigel Clough's refreshing honesty. He called the 2 goals there criminal, and I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely agree. I saw the first one was the most frustrating one for me. Obviously, when we have our own corners, we tend to leave 1 or 2 back. Elliot Hewitt was marking their man, and he was quite often staying in sort of the right back position. And then from the corner we conceded from, their guy switched and went over to the far side. And instead of Dave going over and picking him up, or Blake-Tracy going to pick him up as the fullback on that side, for some reason Hewitt went across with him. And as soon as they got the ball clear, and I saw him running to the ball, I knew we were in trouble because Hewitt was out of position. He was scrambling to get back, and we were just completely all over the shop. So from a tactical point of view, the first goal is one of the most frustrating goals I think we've conceded in a long time for me.
Both are frustrating and both emanated from errors on our part, and they capitalised on it. I understand Clough's frustration. I don't agree with him calling players out in public. I think he should keep that in the dressing room. I think it's collective responsibility whether we win, lose or draw. And it wasn't good enough collectively. You can single out Blake-Tracy if you like. Up to that point, I thought he'd had a decent game. But what does it do for a player's morale when the gaffer's calling him out in public? I don't agree with it, but that's my own personal view. And I guess there'll be other people who think Clough's exactly right to call them out. But if you take away the fact that we made 2 stupid errors and they scored 2 resultant goals, we were a good team on the night. We just weren't finishing stuff off and making that final pass right. Improve that slightly and we would have won a game comfortably. So there's no point in getting suicidal over this. We lost a game against a very competent side that took their chance as well. The loseless run was going to come to an end at some point. It has. Monkey off the back. Let's move on.
Alan, where do you sit with it? Do you agree that Clough should highlight those players for blame, or like Clive, do you think that should be kept indoors?
I think I'd personally, you should leave it up to whoever's doing the interview. Whether Nigel wants to say that or whether he doesn't. All the players know that Nigel's pulled people out before. When he did Hewitt that time, didn't he? If you remember.
I remember that.
Was it against Grimsby or somebody?
Playing against his mate, yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair to Peterborough, there were 2 really good finishes as well. They could have missed the target, but the second one was hard and low across Roberts, and the first one, we were sat right behind it, and it was a good finish. So you can't really fault that, other than they got that in the first place, to get to that chance. They put them away. We didn't.
I think there's a massive perspective thing here, and I completely understand where Clough's coming from. And if I'm honest, I sit with him on it, because we shouldn't be gifting them goals like that. We should be better, because they were 2 simple, basic mistakes. However, I think he has to take a little bit of responsibility for the first goal in terms of how we're setting up defending, making sure we've got our defensive options right. Hewitt shouldn't have been on that left-hand side of the pitch. That should have been left to the left fullback. Why he was out there man-marking him, I don't know. That should have been left to the left fullback, and that got us out of position. And Blake Tracy, yeah, mistakes happen. It's a wet pitch. It is what it is. And you pick it up and move on. And like Clive said, I felt he had a relatively decent game compared to that. However, the interview has, and this is why we've shared it tonight and chosen to share it tonight, it has split opinions. And we've had this comment coming on Twitter from at Masterpiece109. Great username. I hope you discussed the horrendous interview with Nigel. He's so negative. Would prefer a 0-0 draw and 2 shots on goal. Possessed with an unbeaten run full of draws. Survival is the target for the season. Throwing players under the bus. He wasn't that good himself, is the comment on X at MTFC Matters if you want to follow us on there. And I've got some of Clough's comments here. And to be honest, I completely get it. Look, the interview took place probably less than half an hour, 45 minutes after the full-time whistle, where you are completely full of frustrations. I've faced Nigel when he's been in that mood as well and had similar answers years and years ago. I've faced other managers that have had worse than that. But if I'm stripping through some of these quotes, these are the 3 main quotes that I've chosen, I actually agree with them. And there's reasons for why, and it all comes down to perspective. Let's start with we want points, not plaudits. I completely get that when you look at it, because the league table is ridiculously tight, and we know what we're capable of, and we know what happens when we start hitting a little bit of a slump and a bit of a bad form. And I think it's good for the players when they're getting applauded off, and they've played really well and put in some eye-catching football. But eye-catching football does not always win you games and win you points. If you offered me at the start of the season, in fact, I'll offer it you as well. I'll offer it you now. You can have the following. You can have option A on the one hand. You can play really, really well for 46 games, zing passes left, right and centre, but you end up getting relegated because you lose the majority of your games. On the other hand, you play some really boring stuff, which is a little bit timid at times, but you're really tight at the back and you keep clean sheets. And actually, all throughout the season, you don't lose a home game and you get survival. Would you take boring football and survival, which is calm and considered, or would you take risk-averse, high-octane, flowing, sexy football, which could lead, more times than not, to a defeat? Alan, are you going stable and steady, or are you going sexy?
Stable and steady.
Clive, are we getting fruity, or are we being?
I think it's a dumb question. The 2 answers are not mutually exclusive. You can be defensive minded and still play flowing football. If it's not an either or, is it? It can't be an either or. If it is, then of course you want survival, but then you're going to end up with gates of 3,000. You've got to play something that drags people away from their armchairs. And we've been doing that for 2 or 3 years. All right, we've had ups and downs in the process, and we'll have a few more of those. Be an interesting game on Saturday for that reason, won't it?
Yeah, it certainly will. There's plenty in there. I mean, I absolutely love it. Again, I'd rather take the 0-0 and have moans and grumbles. So would I, because if we survive by a point and that's the game where we look back on and think, we should have won it. Oh, but if it's one of those things, isn't it? And absolutely pointless playing that well as that and not getting any from the game. I get it, but I guess it's the context in which you look at it. And I think the context in which Nigel Clough was looking at it, Alan, was the league table, which looks a little bit like this, and with the form guys in mind as well. So the Stags currently sit in 12th place, so bang average mid-table, which I would absolutely be highly delighted with, by the way, if we finish there, if the season ended now. I'd be delighted with that. But in our last 6 games, won 1, drawn 4, and lost 1. You look at the relegation zone, we're not that far away from it. In fact, we're closer to that than what we are at the playoffs at the moment. You look at Burton, at the top of the relegation zone, 32 points, having played a game more than us, won 1, drawn 2, and lost 3 of their last 6 games. So not in the greatest of form. Wigan, of course, as well, 31 points, played 30. No wins in the last 6, drawn 1, lost 5. So with the worst form in the league at the moment. Rotherham won 2, drawn 1, lost 3, so average form at the moment, but critically they are winning games, as are Port Vale, and it just shows how tight it is, Alan. And I think knowing what we know about Mansfield and the amount of runs that we go on in terms of sequences, I understand Clough's frustration a little bit more, because if you look at the sides like Port Vale and Rotherham and Burton, they're winning games within that, and they're scoring goals, whereas sometimes we're being so flat. And yes, it's frustrating to watch and it endures, but what we have been doing is getting points. As soon as we start dropping points, it gives the teams below us something to aim for.
It does. I agree with all that, and I agree with everything what you're saying. But Stags could come out next, say Tuesday against Blackpool, play exactly the same way, and put 5 or 6 chances away. They just didn't score on Tuesday, and that was the main problem. There was no problem with how they played. Some of the passing, the overhit passes, like Clive said earlier on, were a bit of a mess. But any other time, if we put 4 or 5 of them chances away, everybody's happy. It's just, like when we played Bolton, they absolutely battered us. We won 1-0.
This is true. We've been on both sides of it, to be fair. We've been on both sides of it. It's just the traditional Clough frustration, but I understand his points in some ways, because his message to the players was to take your chances and convert them. And when we get in those wide areas, like we said earlier, and wasting the opportunity with poor crosses and poor set pieces and then making silly mistakes at the other end, I understand why he was frustrated. Keep your comments coming in. Mark says interview post-match was honest and true, and also adds, I personally think we set up better away from home. Saturday will be a tough call, but I'm very confident on a win at Blackpool. Matt says depends on the individual player and how Clough thinks they'll react when it comes to their comments post-match. And Mark says, my concern is Nigel will set up for a boring 0-0 draw at home versus Exeter. We had 7 defensive players on the pitch. I think he might revert back to that. So, plenty to talk about, plenty of viewpoints on it. But, hey, that is the beauty of all things football. None of our opinions are ever going to be the same. And at the end of the day, at the end of the season, if we're above that drop zone, we will not care whether we've been sexy or boring, because the job will be done. Talking about sexy and boring, the ad break. Protect what matters most with Actifire Limited, your trusted local fire safety experts in Nottinghamshire. Proud sponsors of the Mansfield Matters podcast. From fire extinguishers and alarms to emergency lighting, pat testing and risk assessments, they've got everything you need for your business to stay safe. Affordable, reliable, professional. Because when it comes to fire protection, there's no room for compromise. Call Actifire Limited today or visit actifire.co.uk. Be ready, be safe, act now. Actifire Limited, proud sponsors of the Mansfield Matters podcast.
We're the Mansfield Matters crew, making podcasts just for you. Some show up, some disappear, but the Stags bring us all here. Through the ups and downs we stay, talking Mansfield Town every day.
You're back with the show for the fans, by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters podcast. Thanks so much for joining us on this Thursday night. As ever, if you want to talk about anything, please feel free to get involved in the live feed comments and have your say on your team. If you're listening to the audio version of this, come and join us pretty much every Thursday. Follow us on all things social media to find out when we're next going to be live. Joining me tonight, Alan Wilson and Clive Parkin. Before the break, we were talking about Nigel Clough's post-match rant. And on Saturday, Clive, we've got an opportunity to take our focus off the league a little bit and talk about the FA Cup against a fearful Burnley side at the moment, who, of course, have got other things on their mind, predominantly staying in the Premier League. It could be a very interesting game, especially having played on Wednesday night as well. They may be looking to rest a few legs. It's a free hit, a new ground for us to tick off, and an afternoon which we can just go and enjoy without the fears and stress and thoughts of all things Sky Bet League One.
Absolutely. We didn't think we'd get the result we did at Bramall Lane. I don't expect us to get the result right, our forecast right for playing up at, is it Burnden Park they play?
Turf Moor.
Turf Moor. I'm looking forward to it because it's a long, long time since I went to Turf Moor, and that wasn't for a Mansfield game. And you're right, Craig. It's a free hit, and I can't imagine he's going to put his strongest squad out, because his priority has got to be survival in the Premier League. It's worth hundreds of millions of pounds. The FA Cup's worth fourpence halfpenny to him. The fans aren't motivated by it. We'll probably have very nearly as many Stags voices there as Burnley voices. I just think it's sad for the FA Cup that they don't take it too seriously at this point. I think they're only going to start biting when they get through to the quarterfinals. At the moment, if they lose this game, they're going to say, well, we were concentrating on the league. And you who could argue with that? And if we play as well as we know we can beat them. If we play like we did the other day, we'll lose.
It's an interesting one, Alan, for me, because Nigel Clough won't be looking at this FA Cup tie with any thought of progression at the front of his mind. He'll be picking his side for Blackpool and working backwards from that.
Yeah, but they proved everybody wrong last night, didn't they? They were 2-0 down, ended up winning 3-2. I know they played Palace, and they haven't been pulling in any. Was it Palace they played? They aren't pulling any trees up, are they? But yeah, it was a good result for them. So it could be interesting what sort of team he plays. But yeah, I really do think, same as Clive, it's a free hit. Go there, no complaints. We just don't need any more defensive injuries. That's the only thing.
That'll be the things which Nigel wants to take away from this live. Try not to embarrass ourselves, but first and foremost, come away injury and suspension free.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have the luxury of thousands of players if we do get people injured. So injuries are far more grotesque to our squad at the moment, because considering what number of players have actually got available to us than they might be to Burnley. But Burnley are very, very keen to preserve their status. I think they're probably going to get relegated. And I think their manager will lose his job at the end of this season. And Sean Dykes will go back in there. That's my forecast. That's Mystic Clive for you. I'm just going to enjoy Saturday. It's a nice trip.
Yeah.
Weather's going to be good, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I dare say we'll have something noshery to have before we go to the game.
That's food, by the way, people. Food, which we will indeed. I think it's an interesting one, though, Alan, because
does it mean something else to other people?
It certainly does.
Right.
Let's not go there. Not before the watershed. Yeah, in terms of what we're looking at for our next couple of games as well, he'll obviously have an eye on the Blackpool game. He'll have half an eye on the Lincoln game as well, Alan. And it's an interesting one to try and pick your side. Do you flip it back and go with what we did against Exeter, or do you try and get a little bit of a hybrid of the two? And yeah, it's interesting to see what we're going to go with, because personally I'd like to see us give it a good go for 45 minutes and then see what happens after that, rather than sort of being reactive, because we're not going to know what sort of side they're going to put out either.
No. I mean, they put apparently in the last round, they put 10 of their reserve team out, if you like, and ended up beating Millwall 5-1. But that was another game. It's another day, isn't it? They haven't faced Mansfield before. They haven't faced somebody like Rhys Oates before. I think he will. I think Oates will play, and I think there'll be another place for Mr. Abbott. So I was impressed with what he did when he came on.
Yeah, he scored a good goal, didn't he? I think there's a lot more to come to him. I think it was a tricky game for him to sort of get into. But yeah, I would maybe look at him starting. I'd probably stick with the back four. Obviously, Roberts is going to play in goal. Back four pretty much picks itself. I think if Akins is fit, he will probably come in, but I don't think I'd go with him. I think I'd go Hewitt for 45, Dave, Blake Tracy, and Maka. Probably go with the two that played on Tuesday night in terms of Lewis Reed and John Russell. Give Nobby Welsh a start. Again, I thought he did all right. Probably play someone like Hendry or maybe Bolton in the 10 role, and I'd probably take a punt on Evans down the left and Oates through the middle, and then you've got Vic for Tuesday night. Never know what I was going to do, but I think the most important thing is just to go there with zero expectations and try and nab an upset. You never know what might happen because to them, like you said, it's absolute pittance, but for us, it can make all the difference in terms of what we might want to do next season as well. So there's always that to consider.
One thing's for sure, Craig, Mr. Clough cannot have a point on Saturday. He wanted a point rather than a defeat on against Peterborough. I understand his reasoning for that, but the point isn't available. So there's no point in us going there set up to defend. We may as well go for it.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we will do. I think we'll give it a go in the first 45 minutes and then, go from there and we'll see what happens. But of course, more important things to talk about. And we're going to start by channeling Clive's Mystic Magnus and doing this.
The game of luck, who gives up, don't mess it up. I hear you say, how do you play? Win, lose or draw, then pick a score and one more thing. Pick a hero, don't score zero, that's the game. But we're not fools, this game has rules. It gets on time, you'll be fine, remember the rhyme. Remember the rhyme. Guess on time, you'll be fine. Remember the rhyme. The death predictions.
Now, it's not escaped my notice this week that the club are at it again. Now, what is it they say? Copying is a form of flattery. The club have launched a new predictions game this week, which is similar but has different things in there. But critically, you have to pay for it. So I think it's £15 for the rest of the season. I think one of the prizes is a season ticket. Will we be charging for podcast predictions? Absolutely not. So podcast predictions remains the best free predictions game that's Mansfield Town related on the market. Let's start with results from Tuesday night, shall we? And I can tell you this, the results are as follows. 4 people correctly predicted a 2-1 defeat, but this week's winner and extending his lead with 18 points is Chris Vincent. He stays top of the table on 329 points. Matt Piercy, the long-time previous leader, now on 306 points in 7th. Limbo 74 in 3rd on 300 points. Olivia Wilson in 4th on 292, and then me in 5th on 283. Best pick of the players for Tuesday night. Luke Bolton was your best choice with 9 points. Abbott and Nobby Welsh would have got you 7. Oates would have got you 6. Hendry 5. Russell 4. Cargill and Reed 3 apiece. Dave and Vic would have got you 2. FBT, Evans, Iro, McLaughlin, Hewitt and Roberts would have got you 1. -5 for anybody else. So well done if you picked up some points on Tuesday night by predicting a 2-1 defeat. Of course, we don't do predictions for cup games, so we move our attention, Alan, to Blackpool on Tuesday night.
Mansfield Town 2-0 win. George Abbott.
Clive.
I'm going to go for a draw, 1 each. I'm going to go Roberts. Keeper Roberts.
I'm going to go for a 3-0 win, and I'm going to go for John Russell as as my player. If you want to play along with podcast predictions, you can do so via the link that is in the description. Now, Alan, it's a simple yes or no question. Can I press this button?
Yes.
Alan, where's you been? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where is your bin? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where is your bin? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where is your bin? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where's you been? Alan, where is your bin?
Feel like we all need a little bit of cheering up after Tuesday night. So, Alan, where's you been is the question. Alan Wilson's got 5 clues to a random football club or football ground, football club usually, across the country. If we get it right after the first clue, we get 5 points apiece. Second clue is 4 and then 3 and so on and so on and so forth. Me and Clive are currently leading the way in terms of the points picked up so far this season. I've got 9 points to my name so far. Clive's got 7. Can Clive overtake me at the top? We'll find out by asking Alan Wilson, where's you been?
Question 1. In 1901, this football team, where I went, became the only league side, the only non-league side to win the FA Cup since the formation of the Football League. I'll repeat that. In 1901, they became the only non-league side to win the FA Cup since the formation of the Football League.
You went there in 1901.
No, I went there lately, not 1901. Went even a glint in my dad's eye.
What year did they win the FA Cup?
Pardon?
Did you tell us what year it was they won the FA Cup?
1901.
Oh, right, okay.
I've got no idea. I'm basing this off the world's oldest club. I'm going to say Sheffield United, based on Sheffield FC, but I know I'm way off.
Clive?
Huddersfield Town.
Incorrect. Question 2. Now, if you watch Sky Sports, you might have an inkling on this one. Roy Keane supports this team. Believe it or not.
Roy Keane supports this team?
Yes. He has admitted to it.
Clive, your turn first.
Shamrock Rovers. I take it from your derisory laughing, that's not correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got absolutely no idea, so I'm going to say that he's a secret Stags fan because Mansfield always matters.
Incorrect. The third one is an anagram of this football team. To the posh tantrum. T-O, the posh, and tantrum, T-A-N-T-R-U-M.
Oh, God. Got a P in the name. D.
Clive's smiling.
He's got it. Right, I'm giving my
Shamrock Rovers.
No, I'm cheating. I'm giving myself 60 seconds to I'm giving myself a second to think here.
Right, okay. Clive's smiling though.
He's going to get some points.
No, he's shaking his head. I thought he was smiling, to be honest.
I tell you what, I'm going to give us both. I'm going to give us both 60 seconds of concentration time.
Okay.
And we'll guess after. We'll guess after this.
Okay.
I'll throw a guess out there. I think I'm wrong, 'cause I think there's too many letters, but I'm going to say Southampton.
Clive?
Tottenham Hotspur.
No, do one. Of course
Correct.
it is. Of course
well
it is.
done, well done to Matt Piercy. He got it on the second guess. Well done, Matt Piercy.
That's why he's doing so well in the prediction league. The man is a genius.
Clearly a very knowledgeable character. Well, there you go. 3 points to Clive in the predictions league, which means that we are now tied on 9 points apiece. So there you go. There you go. That was an instalment of Alan Where's You Been. We'll have another instalment of Alan Where's You Been when Alan's next on the podcast. So make sure you follow us on all things social media. Before we wrap things up for this week's show then and bid you all a fond farewell, let's finally wrap up over the last few games then. I mean, it has been frustrating, Alan, because we've not been winning games. You know, our last 5 games, 4 draws and a defeat. But there are signs there, no matter our opinions on Clough's post-match interview or the connotations of that, there are certainly signs there that we've got some hungry players ready to take the opportunity when it's given to them.
There's a better squad this year, Craig. Better squad of players, better players, as in, you know, the length of the squad compared to last year, and also the better players that we have signed in the windows. And I just think we'll play like that again, like we did on Tuesday, and we won't lose the game. It's all looking positive.
Let's certainly hope so, Clive. First up, Burnley and then Blackpool. So it's a couple of days of the Bees. Can the Stags be focused and, I'm trying to think of another B word, beat the opposition that's put in front of them?
Well, we've got a tremendous reputation of performance against teams that start with B. We cannot fail.
Yeah.
This is true, actually. This is very true. Yeah. Let's just hope that it does turn into something positive, and that next week's podcast is not titled "What a Load of." And there you go. Right, thank you as ever for your company tonight. Sadly, that's all we've got time for on tonight's Mansfield Matters podcast. My thanks as ever to the Mansfield Matters podcast panel, and of course to you guys at home for watching and for listening. Well, the unbeaten run may well be over, but let's forget about the league for one afternoon, shall we, and go and see if we can get a scalp against the Premier League side. Remember that we don't do podcast predictions for that. We can just hope. But we do podcast predictions for league games. Back in action in Sky Bet League One on Tuesday night as we head to the Blackpool Lights. Can the Stags shine? Let us know your thoughts and get your predictions in via the link in the description. A reminder, you must submit your guesses no later than 90 minutes before kick-off on your selected game, and you can't pick the same player 2 games in a row. Right, we're off to try and find Banker Dave and see if we can bankroll the podcast and maybe make Jordan North's happy place an unhappy place. More Burnley references next week. Good night. Protect what matters most with Actifire Limited, your trusted local fire safety experts in Nottinghamshire. Proud sponsors of the Mansfield Matters podcast. From fire extinguishers and alarms to emergency lighting, pat testing and risk assessments, they've got everything you need for your business to stay safe. Affordable, reliable, professional. Because when it comes to fire protection, there's no room for compromise. Call Actifire Limited today or visit actifire.co.uk. Be ready, be safe, act now. Actifire Limited, proud sponsors of the Mansfield Matters podcast.